thank you all so much for being here. We want to talk a little bit about this project, this research that we're doing, and it starts with this idea: the idea that what we shapes, what we say shapes what we think. And this is all a disability inclusive model for strategic communications. You guys know that what we do is strategy and communications with the Zoe Communications Agency, and so this is very near and dear to us because of that, and of course, because of our daughter Zoe, who we'll be speaking about in a few. I almost forgot I'm the one that.
Yeah, I know it. I know. You're standing over there, my dude. You got it. This QR code will be throughout the presentation. So if you've got questions or thoughts or something that like doesn't make sense and you want to chat about it at the end of this, that QR code will pop up throughout the presentation. You can scan it, ask your question, and we'll talk about it. Our goal is not to go too deep in the presentation part because we want to have some dialogue about some of the things that you hear. The fact that you all are here today is very important to us. We're at the very beginning of trying to make sense of what we're going to really present to you formally today. And so we are presenting this to you, one, because you are friends and supporters and we have the opportunity to work with you, but you all are also brilliant human beings. So we are at the very beginning of what we hope to be kind of life work for us. And we want for you all to ask questions, scrutinize it, look at it from the perspective of the thing that you do out here in the world,
Right.
and be a part of what we are creating here.
Oh no. So let's talk about why we're here. You want to take this one first?
Yeah. So we're here because we share something in common, and that is a desire for people with disabilities to be fully seen, valued, and included. And yet, we know that so many of the people that we love are still left out of conversations, they're left out of campaigns and systems that shape our everyday life. But we believe that change begins with something very simple, that is the words that we say. Words, they do a lot of work. They frame belonging, they either build or break participation. So today, we are going to present a 5 step disability inclusive model to apply immediately to any environment. That's the hope, is that it can be applied to any environment. So this presentation draws from our work in communication and behavior and from the civil rights principles that remind us that inclusion is only the starting point.
Now, many of you know that we took a trip earlier this year to Oxford in the United Kingdom, and we were invited to present this paper and this model. And we had an amazing time there at the World Congress Special Needs Education. Yes, and how it started actually is it's a very interesting story. Um, Felicia actually sent an abstract that she had made up on her own behind this idea. Um, I did not know about this. She sent out this abstract to several places and people just, I guess, on a whim to say, what do you think about this idea? Is this
It's
worth
one of those
discussing?
4 a.m. ideas. Y'all ever get those like 4 a.m. ideas?
Yes.
I had one of those.
And wouldn't you know it, one morning as we're sitting in, or maybe afternoon when we're sitting in the house, Felicia walks up to me and just slides her laptop in front of me. And it is an acceptance letter, an invitation to Oxford to present the abstract and paper, the paper that did not yet exist, behind the idea that we had not yet even spoken about. So we had our work in front of us, but this wasn't going to be a difficult thing because again, this is in the wheelhouse of one, what we do, two, what we believe in and we are passionate about, and what will be and is our life's work, especially because of our daughter. So we did the work. We started creating this paper. We built out the abstract, and then it came time to book tickets to actually go there. And they gave us some options. You can present via Zoom, you can present in person, but we got to see you. You have to be a part of this because we put you on the program now. And I was hell bent on making this happen. Like, we've got to go. We have to be there. Felicia had already gone through her list of things that we had to do for the rest of the year and figured this probably ain't happening. So tell them we'll do Zoom and, or we'll sleep on it, whatever. And as I'm trying to figure out ways to make it happen, I just couldn't figure much of anything out. And when I say figure things out, I'm talking about the cost pretty much of everything. And so enter what we call the dinner party crew. Some members of the dinner party crew are here today. If you could just wave your hands, we're very proud of our dinner party
We
crew.
photoshopped Ahava in here. She wasn't there the day we took that photo.
We have so many friends that we love and support us, friends and family. And yet we made this new group of friends over the past few years where we get together ever so often to have dinner, discuss different things that are going on. And we had no intention on discussing this paper or our struggles to try to get to London. And then I'll let you, because you tell this part pretty well.
I don't know if I do. We were sitting around the table. We weren't even thinking about it. We were not going to think about it. We're not talking about it. And out of the blue, this woman right here, Laura Bloom Gordon, she says, "Hey, how's the Oxford thing going? Where are we in the process?" And she said, "Collective we. Where are we in the process?" I said, "Well, we ain't doing nothing, Laura. We gonna be at the house." And she said, "No, you're not." And the table starts pulling out their phones trying to find plane tickets, etc. And from there she kind of took it upon herself to say, we're going to figure this thing out. So if you eventually received a text message from us, it started with this woman right here who said, yes, you guys are going and we're going to make sure that you get there.
Yeah, although we got the invitation, we were accepted, we were put on a program. The ultimate catalyst was Laura Bloom Gordon for really pushing us and holding our feet to the fire. And when I say that, I mean she wanted us to check in with her regularly to make certain that we hit certain milestones. One of creating the GoFundMe page, and then just keeping up on if we're sending it out, who we're sending it out to. We really, really appreciate you so much. We would not have made it there if you hadn't have done that. So do you guys mind helping us to thank her and honor her? Yeah, and so we sent this GoFundMe link out privately to some people. Feleceia was not really in on it first. And, as we're pushing, there were certain people that just really showed they wanted us to do this. And so I was like, well, screw it, man. I'm just going to start sending this out and sending out personal messages to people. And so many of you here are some of the people that actually gave and supported us. Either you gave in that way, you gave in helping to babysit while we were gone, take care
Tracy
of
ironed some
kids,
clothes. She came over to the house and
all sorts of
ironed
things.
clothes before we had to leave.
And so this is actually a part of our thank you to you, is why we really created this. We still have more work to do with this, but we wanted to personally say thank you to all of you for supporting us and helping to push us when we were almost truly comfortable and set in being here in the city of Dallas. We wouldn't have been able to do the great things that have come from this. And it started with this little group right here.
So we went. We did a very quick trip to Oxford, had the opportunity to meet incredible people. I don't know if I realized how impacted I was going to be by the people who were in the room from all over the world who were asking us, what are you doing next with this thing? Can you come to name a place? All over the world, they were asking us, what are you going to do about this? What about Zoe? Is she going to be a part of it? Can we see her? Can she? Because advocacy all over the world,
That's right.
although there are fierce advocates everywhere, the same kind of infrastructure and empowerment that we have is not normal. The same kind of community that we have around helping to build a life for Zoe that is full is not normal. So even parent advocacy, not normal.
Yeah.
So they were trying to figure out, well, where else are you guys going to go, and how are you going to take this beyond where we are today?
Yeah, we had people from Turkey, from
South Africa, Nigeria.
I mean, from places that, well, some places I hadn't even heard of before. I mean, they were from everywhere, and all of them had a similar thing to say to us, which was, "We don't see parents up here ever. We especially don't see parents advocating for their kids. Many people in this community are not able to or don't advocate for themselves, either because they don't have the resources or they don't have the confidence that they can change their environment or their situation at all. And this is not words just from the U.S., although there were a few people there, I think it's two, from California or something like that.
California, and
Yeah,
there were some folks from Canada.
yeah. And they all they all said the same thing. So this is what this represents is not an issue that's only needed here in Dallas and the United States, but literally globally. We still have people. I still have people that contact me today on LinkedIn about what's going on with this because and all this is teaching people how to speak in a better way and how what they say can truly shape a person's behavior, their environment, and their behavior, and thus the future of what they do. Something that simple. And so we're grateful. We came back and celebrated with the kids, as you see. And as we said earlier, this is in our wheelhouse, but when we talk about why it's our life's work, it's because of this one right here. Everyone say hello. She's standing. Everybody say hello to Zoe. Very used to being called out by her parents. She knows, obviously. I'll let you take this.
Oh, this was more for the folks in the UK than it is for you all. You all are all very familiar with. Okay, that's right, Zoe. Um, go to the next slide. Get the photos of Zoe off the screen.
Well, let's just say this quick thing if you've not heard the spiel already, and it's a little different now, but for the Zoe Communications Agency, the reason behind why we do what we do is because Zoe was born with certain limitations when it comes to communicating with others. And so we had to find very creative, tactical ways to communicate with her and for her to be able to communicate back with us successfully and adequately. And so that is what we've tied into what we do with the Zoe Communications Agency. Again, it all starts with Zoe saying hello. A little bit about the two of us. I'll let you do.
You know, I don't like to talk about these slides very often.
Ditto.
You all know us. I am a communication strategist and I've worked primarily in advertising. Frankie, I don't know who knows or does not know this, but Frankie had a dramatic career shift a few years ago. So he's been in strategic comms for years, had a syndicated radio show, self syndicated across the world. And said, I want to do something different. And so he went into psychology. So most recently, he is trying to work very hard to finish his PhD in IO psychology. So he is, everything that we do is really influenced by behavior change. How do you get people to not just hear a thing, but change over time? So behavioral specialists, strategic comms, by our powers combined, we try to figure out this stuff.
Wonder Twins activate.
There you go.
So we want to reinforce this idea again that words are not neutral. So every sentence includes someone or it leaves them out. Something that we want to impress upon you and hopefully those that you encounter after today. Before we go into this, we want to make certain that we have an understanding on a few words. So we're going to go through these definitions very quickly for everyone. So when we say these things, you know what we're talking about. I'll let you take brief first, because that's your word.
Yeah, the first one is a brief. So a brief is a concise statement or a summary created to inform someone thoroughly, especially in preparation for a task or a decision. In advertising, we use briefs to inform a team on what it is they gonna go make. We try to give them as many concise details as possible so that they can do that well. Brief.
A disability results from the interaction between people with impairments and the attitudinal and environmental barriers that hinder full and effective participation on an equal basis. And that definition comes from the World Health Organization.
Disability inclusion, big word, big term. Disability inclusion is all about designing messages, materials, and systems so that disabled people can see themselves, be respected, and participate fully without extra hurdles. Oh my God, I could preach a sermon. We ain't got time. Go to the next one.
Well, it's really important, that one right there, because many people hear inclusion and they think you just mean put bodies in the place. So someone that looks different in the place. And this is talking about going the extra mile to do the work to make certain that there is a level playing field when it comes to understanding. There's a baseline for understanding and operating for everyone. And you do that, of course, not just through trying to design these messages, but through strategic communications. You have to plan these messages intentionally and make sure they're tied to very specific outcomes.
So why in the world does this matter? We're going to hit you with a few stats because Stats are important. They tend to tell the truth. Thank the Lord. I'm going to stop there. So why does this matter? Well, 25% of the population in the United States have a disability. So that disability might range. So it could be from a hearing impairment to cognitive learning, vision. So it's kind of a swath of different kinds of disabilities that we see in that 25%. It's a quarter of the population. 1 in 4 people in the United States have a disability.
Yeah, it's important to keep that in mind that we often, myself very often, would separate special needs from disabilities. But as far as the United States Census and Labor and Statistics Bureau and all of the other different bureaus that they have go, they all fall under the same umbrella of disabilities. So you have someone with Down syndrome, and they are graded on the same scale as someone who broke their leg and is in a wheelchair or on crutches temporarily.
So 1 in 4. Um, but the disposable income amongst this community, I think, is not something that folks often think about. So, what does it have to do with the economy? Well, US disposable income is connected to the disabilities community in a pretty big way. So, $490 billion, which is more than the annual GDP of Norway, which is one of the richest countries in the world. So when we're talking about designing systems, designing communication for people with disabilities, not only are we talking about access, but we are talking about how it truly affects the economy. In a moment, we'll talk about what that means for people going to work and employment, but it truly does affect our bottom line. And in America, economy is king.
So I wanted to bring this up. Have you guys, has anybody seen the Netflix special? It's called Crip Camp. Gotta check this out. It is an amazing documentary. Crip Camp is a documentary on what they call a disability revolution. And it talks about the road to the American Disabilities Act. And this is a picture of one of the many demonstrations that happened from the disabilities community just trying to have their, at the time, bill heard in order to be put into put into law. And so what they did here was they wanted to help make a visual example of how difficult it is for them to fit into society. This Capitol building that they're at, which is in Washington D.C., I can look up, or they say it on the they show it on the special, which one it is. There are no ramps. There's no other way for these people to get into this building at the time of this. And so what you see are people. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to step in there, Cam. My bad. You'll see people pulling themselves out. If you look towards the center, the dead center, up just an inch, you'll see a young lady here with, I think she has, there's one on here with no legs that's pulling themselves up backwards. There's another person pulling their wheelchair up. And these people are doing it by themselves. People that had MS, people that had all sorts of disabilities, just to show how difficult it is for them to fit in, to be, to have accessibility. Right? And so when we think about that, and we think about it with our workforce, we still, unfortunately, have a lot of work to do. We have the American Disabilities Act, and we have other things. We have civil rights, and yet this is what exclusion looks like at scale to date. We already covered that 1 in every 4 adults have a disability. They're only a fraction of the workforce. Um, Out of 153.6 million people who do not have a disability and are employed, they still leave out 7.7 million people with disabilities who are without jobs. Now, we can really go on a tangent about this if we wanted to, because there's legislation that's in place currently that says if Zoe has a job and she makes over, I think it's between $16,000 or $20,000 a year, she loses any government aid that she has. Who can live off $16,000 a year alone? Obviously would need some support. But we have a long way to go. There are systems and things in place that make it very difficult for accessibility
Yeah.
with this community.
And there's a large assumption as well that people with disability are therefore unemployable. So if I have whatever name thing, then I cannot work. This idea has come a bit more to life for us as Zoe has gotten older. Because as a person with disabilities gets older, at some point you've got to determine, well, what are they going to do? What's going to happen? There are places for people with disabilities to go, but what tends to happen as a person ages is that um, they get stuck in a facility. They might get stuck at home. They might have some work opportunities, but they tend to be incredibly limited. And that's largely because there's an assumption that people with disabilities cannot even contribute. So the world is not built for them to exist in, nor is it really built for them to contribute to.
And we can talk a little bit about the mindset that comes from, because this mindset has actually existed for, I guess, almost 100 years at this point. The history shows that when a family would have a person with disabilities, what would typically happen is they would be sent away or they would be put away. Let's say in a basement room or in a facility. Some were even put to death. And believe it or not, I shared with Felicia, people that even work in the behavioral psychology industry, that lost their licenses because they were on a podcast speaking about the disabilities community, who they work with exclusively, and how because they cannot contribute, they cannot add any tax dollars to the U.S. system, they should be killed, were the literal words said on the podcast. They should be killed. This is not a mindset that is actually left. This still exists. And even though we do have some places, we can count on two hands maybe in the city of Dallas, where people with I'm going to say special needs and disabilities can exist. Across the world, they don't have it at all. This type of mindset rules and continues to guide people's behavior. Here's an example just yesterday that popped up on my LinkedIn screen. A man who had to have surgery and was a manager for Wendy's. It was Wendy's in Ohio. Got approval for his time off, got approval for when he'd come back. It was known that when he came back, he was going to come back with an ailment. He was not going to be able to walk the same, which means he would not be able to work the same. But all of that was approved and discussed prior to. However, after his surgery, after his time off, when he came back to work, the corporation decided that since he could not perform due to his disability, that he could no longer work for the organization. And so he lost his job. And Wendy's is now being sued because of it. This is a current issue because the idea is that because you have disabilities, you're not employable. You cannot contribute. That's a problem that we want to solve. So we're going from the theory that the issue is because you're unemployable, to a system design that can hopefully help to address this.
This is where it gets really fun because now we're starting to think about what could the solutions be. Now, when you look at an issue like this, it seems like a behemoth. It seems really big. I might not, I can't solve for what the government is doing. I can't solve for policy. I can't solve for that. But one of the things that we work really hard to do is to simplify things to the least common denominator. For what can we solve? The thing that we think we can begin to solve for are the words that we say. That's something that anybody in this room that controls a message can begin to solve for. You can start to solve for the words that you say. So that's where we're beginning today. So the big question is, for whom is this message designed? When you make a thing, who are you designing it for? Who is it created for? Most communication assumes a default user. We're going to assume that they can read fast, that they can hear well, that they can understand jargon, that they don't need plain speak. We carry a lot of assumptions when we make a message. We all do it. Every last single one of us assume that the person that we are talking to likely has a lot of kind of default capabilities. You good, dude? All right, cool. Of the 1 in 4 U.S. adults that live with a disability, like this can affect how they therefore receive information. Are we thinking about the 25% who may or may not carry these assumptions? But we know that when communication feels clear and inclusive, belonging happens naturally. We test this theory out on Zoe all the time.
Yes, we do.
Most days. Zoe right now is in a musical. Zoe, what musical are you in right now? What's the call? What's the musical call? No, you're in SpongeBob. That's right. That's right. SpongeBob, Big Bob. That's not even in the musical. Zoe is in SpongeBob the musical, but she is the only kid with disabilities in the show. I did it to myself, is what I like to like. I did it to me. She's the only kid with disabilities in the show, but she's already. I hate when your kids prove your point, but you didn't like really mean for it to happen. Then it starts to like do something to you. That is what's happening right now. So Zoe has to. We got to work a little bit harder, which means that when we come home from rehearsals, We are watching the recordings
Every day.
every day, and Mom is working through the choreography with Zoe. So earlier this week, on one of our choreography rehearsal days, I had to adjust the way that I was describing the choreography to her like 3 or 4 times. So I'd try one thing, I would do it a few times, she wouldn't pick up on it, and we'd have to try another set of words. Everybody say set of words.
Set words.
We'd have to try another set of words. And finally, we landed on a set of words that made the thing make sense. Once I landed on the set of words, do you know what happened? She got it. A lot of times we stop at the first set of words. We say the thing, they don't get it, and then we assume that means that they can't do it. Well, if it's good for Zoe, if that idea works for Zoe, it probably works for everybody. It probably works for most people. And that's the thing that we really want to pull out here is that if we design systems that are good for people with disabilities, it will likely affect the whole. It will likely affect people who we overlook often and don't even realize that we're doing it.
So there is a need to belong, and that need is fundamental for human motivation. In our communication systems, we believe that authentic disability representation and identity safe design can operate as some causal levers for participation, not just optics. And so here we are again, simplifying what I just said. We believe that the language you use can create belonging, and from that, you get participation. Activity. And so here's the beginning of our behavioral frame for this. Through the language we use, we create a shared identity. How can you do that? Well, think about it. If you're in a room where everyone speaks English and one person speaks Portuguese, and they don't know any English, well, there's a very distinct line that shows there's not a shared identity there. You'll have to dig a little further. You'll have to probably change the way you speak to each other in order to figure out where your lines may cross. So, by using proper communication tactics, you can create a shared identity. Now that I know we have this thing in common, it's more probable that I feel like I belong in this conversation with you. And so, creating shared identity through the use of language can create belonging. And with that, I can be activated to do things on our behalf to get whatever the outcome is that we're looking for. So, using the proper language creates shared identity that establishes belonging, which motivates us into activity. That's not just a disabilities model, that is a communication driving action model for everyone. So, oh, did I skip? Yep, action. So again, if we know that shared identity and belonging drive action, well, the next question is, how do we intentionally build those levers in every message that we create? I don't want to have to change every single thing they say, but there's a smart way to do it. This is you. Oh.
All right. So our attempt is to move from this being about compliance and checklists and eventually move to it being about communication and belonging. At first, it feels like an activity, like a thing that you have to figure out how to do. Although what we are about to present in this, I'm not going to say the name of it yet, but what we're about to present, it could feel like a checklist. But the ultimate intent is for it to become a way of thinking. And as it becomes a way of thinking, it starts to do a thing naturally. It starts to naturally invite people who may not feel like they belong into belonging and participation. So our goal is to move from theory, move out of the world of theory into something that feels systemic. So to develop a system to make public communication accessible. I forgot a C. So it should be measurable, systemic, and inclusive. So again, like this is with the intention of helping folks understand how to think about the thing. Go for it.
So here it is. This is what we'd like to call the Accessibility Communications Index. This is an idea that we came up with um, in correlation with guidelines from the World Health Organization. Hold on, I have, because I can't see the notes there, I'm trying to pull it up here on my phone as well. From the Civil Rights Act, as well as the, oh, where is it? Well, you'll see this on the paper. I'll keep going. So, and in fact, while I'm talking about the paper, I'm going to give this quote direct from it. Our index is a structural scorecard that ranges from 0 to 100 in ratings of how well a communication asset meets baseline accessibility standards, including captions, alternative text, readable contrast, your font, your color schemes, clear navigation on your website, and physical wayfinding. And here are the 5 steps to it. You can check that out. Pull up these notes.
So it starts with some terms that we began with earlier. The first one is inclusive briefing. You want to keep it going? You want me to
You're
go?
good.
All right.
Yeah, inclusive briefing. So up front, they have upfront specification of audience, access needs, plain language commitments, improves comprehension and usability in randomized and quasi-experimental work. In practice, that means they clearly declare reading levels. They include captioning. They provide clear step-by-step instructions to reduce the cognitive load and confusion that some endure. Co-designing with disabled partners. That means you co-design with disabled partners, as opposed to assuming or going off of your lived experience with someone. Bring someone who actually lives the experience into the room to help design it, because, well, you're looking through 2 different lenses, believe it or not, and so that's important. Accessibility checks or accessible deployment. This is pretty much aligning artifacts to recognized digital and in-person accessibility standards. The different things that you have to show a person where to go, what to do at any time. It's making certain that they meet their standards. So if you have a sign that says, and a picture that says, here's where the restroom is, and that's great, we did it. We checked the box, except we had a person that came in that is blind, and there's nothing in Braille to facilitate that person's dilemma. That's where this would come in. Next, we did accessible employment, the deployment, sorry, that's both, um, and reinforcement. So we have a couple of things that'll stack up this reinforcement at the point of action. We have a couple of strategies that we've included in our research. We bring in mindfulness as something that's used to help reinforce these strategies. Also, here we are. The objective is just to complete the next step, which is very important. This is not about conquering the world with one move, but this is about helping people to get to the next step in communication. For some, it's as simple as being able to know how to say, "Hi, my name is." And for others, it's being able to identify, because this is a problem in some countries. Um, if that's a man, a woman, or a shared bathroom by what sign I'm looking at. And we'll get more into that and reinforcement point in a moment. So here's just another breakdown of it again: inclusive briefing, goals and access, having targeted roles, co-designing. That is exactly what it is: co-designing, having things co-authored with people that are from this community, walking through and actually testing. That's what the prototyping is before you put it into the environment. Accessible deployment is pretty much wayfinding and accommodation. And lastly, reinforcement. We have, and if you'd like, we can share more information on certain parts of the paper with you. The paper is still a living organism, and we'll talk more about that towards the end. But I can discuss more of the strategies towards mindfulness and just-in-time prompts.
I got City of Dallas up here. I never meant to tell you ahead of time. Hey, I put you in this, man. We've embarked on a really fun project with this guy over here and his team at City of Dallas. They are taking on the really easy task of telling the entire city about zoning. So easy to do. Thankfully, there are brilliant people like Michael Wade and the team at. Exactly. Thank you, Zoe. Um, who understand the topic in depth. Our goal is to take it from Michael Wade, brilliant language, to Zoe language. And there are a lot of steps in between in between those things. So we have a beginning of a case study, Michael. Just so you know, we're going to use some of this as case study work. We decided to go out here in these streets at the State Fair of Texas to talk to regular people about what zoning means. And we worked with the team at the city to figure out like what words do we think could be public facing that we know are true and that really say what the city is trying to do. And we came up with a really great slogan, I love it. And we started testing it out. So the slogan was this: change is inevitable, your role is your choice. Makes some sense to some people in the room. But we decided let's go test it out and see how it feels. So after months of listening to the community about the things that many residents didn't understand about zoning, we applied this model with the City of Dallas comms and started testing how real people could understand complex civic language. We learned a lot of things. Go to the next slide. We learned a lot of things. We learned and are learning, Michael Wade, that we're wondering if this word is going to work. We're wondering if the word inevitable works. As I've gone back and listened to some of the videos and listening to people try to figure out how to make their way through that word and understand what it means, we wonder, it's a theory, we're questioning it, is it still too much? Is there a way for us to still take that idea and simplify it even more? What gets complicated for all of us in this room is that we have stakeholders on all sides. We have people who are saying, we got to be careful about the things that we say, but we also have people saying, I don't know what you're saying. And so figuring out a way to meet in the middle and really also educate all parties and stakeholders, et cetera, along the way is something that requires some rigor, yes? So we're still learning. We're still in the process of learning. How do we take really complicated language and simplify it in a way that everyone can understand and come along?
So again, communication defines what experiences people will have in public spaces. Accessibility then, in all forms, drives belonging. Oh, this is a wonderful part. Okay, cool. So
I do it in 2 minutes. We're almost out of time.
okay, cool. So we're testing our ACI here, and this is what I was trying to remember earlier: the extra resources that we're using here. But so we start with an area that has high friction. That means you have some very obvious issues. People in the disabilities community have trying to integrate, and so, oh, no. And so I can't get all the way over here, but we go from where we're at 0 to 49, and we move into working this ACI. We notice that they need issues, they need things fixed with their web pages, they need new videos, they need changes on their forms so that accessibility and narrative equity can be available. And from there, after they've met these checks and they've been able to meet a certain criteria level, remember that the guidelines are from 0 to 100. So when they meet a certain criteria level, that management says, okay, we're good with this, and we know we're good with this because we have co-designed with people in the community who says if they know this, this is a baseline level of understanding, then we're ready to launch. Here's an example. Here is here's an example of a flyer that's used, and this is not from the city of Dallas. I want to preface that. Um, but a flyer that was used by a city that wanted to invite everybody to their celebration. It says, join us for the citywide celebratory event. Come and join us, partake in the various, there are missing sources of fun, food, and festivities provided through this celebratory day, October 18th. Just imagine if you're driving down the highway and you have to get all of that.
Y'all have
Or if
seen
you're
these flyers
on your way,
before.
yeah,
You've
or
seen
you're
them. They
on your
out
way
here.
in and out of your kid's school and you're trying to catch really quick what the event is, but you have to read through all of this. And depending on where you are, what your culture is, what your level of understanding is, you might not know what they mean when they say partaken, uh, celebratory, and all of it. Some of these words really do catch people off. So we put this through the Accessibility Communications Index, and this is what it looked like at the end. Everyone's invited. Because if you notice, some people that may have a problem reading that may say this is just for people that understand that. This changes with this. Everyone's invited. A day of music, food, and fun and connection in our city square. There you are. Who, what, where, when. And then if you notice at the bottom, there are some icons that go further to let people know that accessibility is available through vision impaired, hearing impaired, so on and so forth. And so here we are. We've gone from high friction all the way after the adjustments. Remember, I said it may not hit 100. Their level was 86. So at that level of 86%, they're ready to launch. And that's what I also want to bring out the size of the font and the switching of the colors. All of that is important to be able to bring it out. In fact, we're going to talk about color scheme in a second. We'll rush through this. Let me just, if you don't mind. Yeah, rush. Very quick things about our limitations that we see so far. This model assumes that leadership is committed to doing this. And what we know is that people will say, yes, that sounds great, and then they won't follow through. So when timeliness over politics override the conditions, fidelity, and impact, then the probability of this happening declines. The next is contextual adaptation being necessary. This requires adaptation for multilingual audiences, rural governance structures, and disabilities communities. That's hard to meet for everyone, so it means it's going to take time. Knowing that ahead of time is going to be important, but it has to happen. Otherwise, cues for psychological safety for everyone in these communities may differ from place to place. The last is that, well, and we'll tell you, we have been charged by the World Congress of Special Needs Education. I always have to go back and remember to continue testing. This work synthesizes research that's not originally designed to align. So people didn't necessarily create this law with these people in mind, that structure with these people in mind. We found a way to make them align by creating this structure. But the only way we continue to truly prove it works is by testing it. So the accessibility standards, positive psychology, which is another one of the methods that's used in the research, civic engagement, and representation studies all help for that. Truly, when communications are built with disabled people, they meet accessibility standards and they frame identity safely while reinforcing competence and meaning, we should observe some measurable gains. We should also observe well being and participation. People become employable.
So the goal is to begin with inclusion in mind. Like whenever you're making a thing, whatever the thing is, start with everybody. Start with inclusion in mind. Don't bake it in at the end, which happens more often than not. So when you're writing your plans, when you're coming up with what you're going to say and to whom, you want to write inclusion into the brief or into those initial decisions. Don't let inclusion be an afterthought, a thought on how you plan or how you research. And if you don't know, ask somebody. Start to do a little digging about the communities that are around you that you think you might want to speak to so that you're going in with some body of knowledge. This one is tricky, but not so much. I think people are just afraid of it. The idea of co designing with disabled partners. When you first hear that, you might say, I don't know any disabled partners. We can find you some. There's a place to begin. And it's sometimes uncomfortable because I think that many people don't know if they even know folks who are disabled. So ask somebody and start to pull them into your process. If you don't know where to find a group of folks, if you don't know how to focus group, if you don't know to whom you can speak, ask us.
We're
We'll
here to
point you
help.
to some people. And finally, you want to measure expectations for accessibility access before you launch it. So test it with some parents, test it with some people, send it to a friend. Say, do you think this is going to work? What's missing? Would you come and take a look at this space with me? What do I not have in place in order for this to be good for everybody? Nakoa is good at that. She can help you too, yes? I just threw you in there.
This is still you.
Oh, he said that this is still me. Sorry. So we're not aiming necessarily for compliance. Compliance is all about checking the box. We don't want to just check the box. Our goal is inclusive communication. So this is Zoe. She was she worked at this place last year. Zoe, do you know the name of this place? Where is this? Beatnik. She calls it Meatnik. This is Beatnik. Zoe worked here last year. Yeah, you like that place?
Yeah, she loves that place.
She loves that place. And so one of the things that we loved about Beatnik was the fact that everybody just, are you coming up to look at it? You want to see yourself?
Go ahead.
Okay, that's cool with me. You can sit right there. Say, excuse me.
So this was a clothing store that also sold fine goods. She's now working at Brother Bill's, is it grocery in West Dallas? Yeah, thanks to partners and organizations like Zoe's school, Notre Dame School, they have programs that are set to make certain all of their students have a job, and they have jobs for a few years before they ever get to leaving the school. So they're already, integrated with some organizations, and if not, they're already familiar with what it's like to work at a job and in that type of environment.
So we believe that when we change our words, we change who gets to belong. It all begins with the words that we say. You shouldn't be here today looking at yourself on the screen. Oh my God. Okay, okay.
So we decided to put our money where our mouth is, and this is our logo that we've come up with. We've been thriving on for over a decade. It actually began multicolored, and the background behind the logo actually represents all of the chromosomes that are included with those that have, specifically the trisomy chromosome that those with Down syndrome have. So that Z is all inspired by Zoe. But we noticed that to understand and for accessibility to truly be a thing with our logo, we failed. We didn't do it right. So running it through our own index, this is our new logo that we launched. Well, that's very kind. I didn't expect that to happen. Thank you so much. Now, there are two things I want to bring out about this logo, maybe three, and then I'm going to throw it to Feleceia because this was really her brainchild and she really pushed for this. But we did research on color theory and color psychology to see what colors really stand out and are most accessible, easier to take in. They don't cause issues. And these colors are where we landed. We also, what is it, Calibri or Calibri?
Calibri.
Calibri is a font. She's the designer. I'm not a designer. Yeah, I'm not a designer. Calibri is a font that actually has been reported as being the most highly used and highly accessible font for people in the disabilities community across the United States. Unfortunately, this year, I think it was right before we ended. Yeah, the current administration actually decided to remove that because it represents DEI. And so they moved everything back to Times New Roman. But because of what we serve and the organizations that we serve and the communities that we serve, we don't necessarily, we still have the things that we can do. And we want to inspire everybody to do the same thing, if you like. And so that's why that's and that's for government issued documents and things that are, there. That's not for things in small businesses, local businesses, things like that. So we used our own power to add that to our font structure so that it's again more accessible for that community.
And there are a couple other things about it I'll try to touch on really quickly. We say amongst ourselves that our goal is to to identify unconventional parts and pieces and to make sense out of them. So whenever our team takes on a new project, we have just like a ton of things and we got to try to make it make sense. We don't try to conform those things to be something that they're not. We just try to put them together to formulate a story that can make sense. So seeing all of the elements in the logo is our way of telling that part of the story, that we bring together parts and pieces that may or may not make sense, and we try to make sense out of them. The final two things is there are the three triangles there. If you know of of kids with Down syndrome or people with Down syndrome, the three arrows stands for the lucky few. It's another kind of wink at the Down syndrome community in particular. And then you see one lonely little orange, one lonely little orange dot there, and that is us always thinking about the person who is
Stand up.
the person who is not always spoken to.
Mhm.
The end.
Yep. And so now we've moved from creative solutions from Z to A to strategy to story and strategies designed for all. And so that is we actually just launched this on the first of the year for Zoe Communications Agency. And is it the next slide? Okay, and before I go to this next slide, I just want to say again, thank you to everyone that came. For those of you that came in a little later, we mentioned that this being here was actually our way of saying thank you to each and every person that has helped to celebrate what we're trying to do and has supported us in many, many ways of getting this off the ground and moving forward. The Congress on Special Needs Education asked us to continue this. Actually, they're looking to publish it in two of their journals in the UK at Oxford. We've actually been invited to Ireland in April to present the same thing as a result of what came from that. And we wanted to find as many ways as possible to say thank you. So we came up with this idea of finding a way to really continue pushing our research. Felicia and I are lifelong entrepreneurs, and so we believe in building a thing and trying to make it to support itself. And so instead of it supporting itself, we made something that you all can help to support with us with it, which is the Third Legacy Foundation, where our standards are education, advocacy, and research. We said that if there's anything else we could do to say thank you, we wanted to make every month, every dollar you gave tax deductible, so you can claim it on your taxes.
And so you
Yeah,
can.
and we made sure to get that done before the year was over, so that it could be applicable.
We did
So
it.
yeah, if it matters to you and you'd like to put it as a cash gift, cash donation, what you gave to this point, you can at this point because we are an officially legit foundation that launched right before yeah, right, ooh wee, in December. Yeah. One of the things that we've already gotten started is talking with Zoe School, the Notre Dame school. They are actually going to partner with us to interview with their teachers and, well, mainly their staff, their teachers and their staff, because they represent a protected population, but they're going to help us to continue testing this theory. Um, you can talk about Notre Dame school if you'd like. I can just say simply that people from all over and outside of Dallas attend this school because
Like
there are
88 zip codes.
they serve 88 zip codes because there are no other, there are very few other schools that are like Notre Dame. And so that's one of the things that we have going. We're looking to implement our index in as many opportunities with our clients as they would have us to. I just threw that out there. I got some of them in here. And there was a third thing. I can't remember that.
We're gonna try it out with the Think Out Be Like fashion show this year as well.
That's it. And so, yes, Ahava is here in the back, who was the one that you missed your picture earlier from. She's also from the dinner party crew. And she works with Dallas College. Is it marketing and arts? Marketing for the arts? Yes. Thank you very much. There's a beautiful partnership brewing between them and Think Out Be Light, which is a fashion show designed for all that celebrated 10 years. Was it last year? 10 years of doing it. Feleceia started this fashion show, and it's just blown up into this wonderful thing with people with disabilities and people without coming together, designers and musicians and all. That's a beautiful thing. So all of that's happening through the organization as well. What happened? I don't know, but that was the last one anyway.
Well, good. That means we have a couple of minutes for questions if you'd like, or comments or whatever. All right. All right, Michael, what you got?
Do y'all know of or have you met with Dylan Rafferty at the North Texas Disability Chamber?
I just learned that they existed. Like in the middle of the night, I was like rando away.
We just found out about them a couple of weeks ago because of St. Marshall.
Oh
yeah.
Just up the highway here. I still call it Lighthouse for the Blind, but it's in Vision, Dallas. Do y'all know anything about them, or have you toured their facility? Okay, yeah. We'll connect.
Thank you.
Yes, especially the Disabilities Chamber. We just literally learned about it maybe it was a month ago.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone used the QR code earlier to ask for questions. You can check on that. And if you didn't, but you do have a question, comment, or anything like that before we end this.
Did you?
Cool.
I don't know.
Thank you, Mom.
Well, you can just go ahead and ask. Have a seat real quick, baby. Well, just one moment. We got one question.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mom.
This is beautiful. It's beautiful to know that this intention exists, and is something that I know impacts us all personally, right? No matter what someone else's disability is, there's something about us that we have to work harder through to work overcome, which we all fit into this category. I'm committed to doing that with you all. My question is, what pushback have you gotten, and what's that been like?
We haven't learned it yet. I'm sure it's coming.
Yeah.
We assume we know what some of the pushback might be, which is go back to that limitation slide. We think that it's kind of baked into these thoughts here, whether it's with folks saying, well, not us, we can't do that, whether it's with stakeholders, knowing that it's going to have to be, it should be adaptable for different scenarios. And so trying to understand what those different scenarios are, we don't know because we need to test them. So.
Yeah. And one of the big things that I see your hands, that we're really trying to figure out is how we can make this an institutionalized process. We believe it all comes down to legislation ultimately, like if you really want everybody to do it. But until then, you have to have some sort of social proof, some proof of concept. And so finding partners that will allow us to do that and that will be actually committed, like which is what we talked about in the very first limitation. That's a big thing we're trying to still figure out. I think Lisa, you and Tracy have. No?
I may be jumping way ahead of you guys. Public education. So my older daughter's a teacher in Richardson School District. She teaches first grade. Did a summer semester in England and actually toured some different schools there. And she talked about what you talked about with the lack of services and for people with disabilities, special needs. And she was really, it really stuck with her how outside of this country, how folks are not provided for.
Sure.
However, in this country as well, in our public school system, there's also not a lot. I mean, I think they do the best they can with budgets and providing. But I feel like a lot of this would apply to school districts. Has that occurred to you guys? Is that something that may be on the horizon? Notre Dame is a great school. It's a blessing to be able to have them as a resource. I just wonder about, public school districts, if that's something that you've thought about. 'Cause I think this is such a great framework and would be so great in a district, but obviously getting into a public school district that's a whole monster in and of itself.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. Felicia and I, again, thanks to our background, our faith, and our health that we have to keep up because of our kids. I'm grateful to them for that. We are not really afraid to walk into a room and ask for this and push for this and advocate. However, there are some rooms that are very difficult to get into, and there is more work that you have to truly prove that this is something they can have enough confidence in to establish it. And so we believe that this should be a standard, or something similar should be a standard pretty much for any and every organization. This is not just how you work, this is how you should live and exist with one another. So we are open to every entity, honestly, that will take it, and everyone that won't, we'd love to have a conversation with.
Yeah.
That's from school districts and anyone else for it. Yes.
So what Lisa just said just reminded me of something that there's an opportunity at regional levels of education to get in and have those conversations versus trying to go school district by school district, because given the grant funding that regions have and the requirements that they have, especially with disability education, those conversations are really critical that they then begin deploying programming for school districts. So there's a way, I think, to even have that higher level conversation, and we'll talk about what region to start with there. The second piece that I was thinking about I was thinking about the institutional will piece, and when DEI efforts, when we were trying to get them into businesses and companies, it really was about making the business case for DEI, right? Dollars talk. And you all talked about the economic impact of this, and I'm wondering what considerations you've given in talking with organizations and companies who might have a little bit of resistance, and talking about the business case for this first, versus, and I mean, as much as we want to be like, this is the right thing to do, going in with the business case and the business impact and saying, this is why, this is how this will impact your bottom line and your dollars, et cetera. And also you're creating more inclusion, more belonging, and more participation because you're choosing to go down this path.
There are probably 3 or 4 presentations. And sorry, Cam, you're right. All right, I'm in the microphone. There are probably 3 or 4 presentations in this presentation, and I think that the economic impact one is probably its own, because what we didn't talk about are the extensions of the folks with disabilities. So if you are targeting a person with disabilities, if you're targeting Zoe, you're targeting me and Frankie. And so the economic impact therefore broadens. Now you're talking about, well, half the U.S. population is either disabled or they are connected to someone who is. And they are not going to show up at your church, at your thing, at your whatever, if it is not a place for their person to be as well. So there's money on the table, tons of it. I mean, Notre Dame is, just real fast, is a great example of it. Notre Dame has over 88 zip codes that attend Notre Dame school, which means nobody else in the greater DFW area has solved well for people with disabilities, and they run out of space every single year.
Yep. I just want to point to these 3 things at the bottom. These 3 things are our starting point for what we know and what we're able to do very well: education, advocacy, and research. However, being able to have the information to tell a company, this is, the change that you could expect. We would have to bolster a research department, people that could help us with things like that. We just can't do it all ourselves. And so I want to be very transparent with the group that's in this room about some of the things that we additionally would be looking for help with, which start with those 3 things, and also go out into things like finances. So we have not dealt with grants and receiving grants as a foundation or anything like that. I want to make sure to put that out there, because I know there are people in here who have or know and have access to. Felicia and I have done for-profit our whole lives. And so, that's another step that we would also need help with in building this. But this is a thing that's actively happening to help push this research and continued research. Oh, I left out the continued research part, which we have a couple of different steps, but for the people that are in the room, we believe that our index aligns with other indexes that we've seen. And one in particular, we believe that if the changes in language and communications help to make a better quality of life for the people that are working and the people that were not working, the disabled community, that would affect their brain health. We feel like it's very, very clear.
It's so clear. It's so
How-
clear, yeah.
And to affect a person's cognitive abilities and so on, we want that to be a next step of our research as well, to prove and make the case for that. That you're helping to it's helping to build on the brain health for these people and the people in the organization prior to, because you are changing not just the behavior but the environment overall through the habits that you've implemented in that.
So, first of all, I really love the way you told this story, because you make it so personal and you made it so simple to think about how you can help. I mean, it's just, thank you for doing this for all of us today. It's not an academic paper that we have to sit down and read. So thank you for that. One of the things that I thought of as you were talking is how powerful the example is in helping you understand what you can do. Even your simple examples that were in the presentation about the city piece and your own morphing of your own logo, those are really easy examples to understand where you have some self-agency to begin right now, helping to advocate. That then jumps me to thinking about you guys in Ireland and thinking about the 2 journal pieces, wanting to have more and more examples for people to be able to see and grab. So I'm wondering if part of your next steps could be using your platform to create I'm going to call it a shared resource, where people who take this on can post the specific things that they're doing for others to see and to try. And so that part of what you are able to give in Ireland or to whomever are specific ideas for action. Because I think some part of this, you don't want it to be theoretical. You don't want it to be a barrier. You actually want it to be very action oriented. And I think if you actually ask for that, you automatically make people successful. Like if you're doing something small,
They feel like they can be a part of it.
they feel like they can be a part of it. And that made me think about like all the, here in this room, in my head, it's Shelton School. It's like all the things that I know I'm involved with. All we have to do is ask them for one example and they're bought in. So I'm wondering if there isn't a space or a place where you have this, and then that serves you, in your work that you're going to do over the next year. It's a different ask than it's a smaller step than saying, can you get this done in your organization and find the stakeholders that will say yes. That's just going to take the stories of impact. So I think you already did it. You already showed us how to do it. Now the question is like how to inspire it so that you have some scale behind it. Does that make sense to you?
That's powerful. Thank you for that. I think that's brilliant. I see you. I want to let him, and we'll come right back to you. Go ahead.
So that's the piece that I was wrestling with on all of this is it's like, where do you find the most, like the multiplication effect, right? Like it's just y'all two right now in this community, so all of us, right? But then it's how do you multiply this versus take too many steps? Yeah. And I think just one recommendation from how you guys framed it and shared it, I was still missing out on the piece of like the employability piece. Y'all focus a lot on that. and I think so. I'm going to put myself in that bad guy spot. I'm going to put myself in the I'm not the baseline leadership spot. I'm not bought in, right? And if I put myself in that, it's like, well, you didn't tell me what the employability, like, how does all of this lead to employability, and what does that do for me with my economics and my bottom dollars, right? I'm a small business. I'm a, city planner. I'm a, senator passing legislation. I need the economics, right? Going back to, and remind me of your name again.
Laura.
Laura. So going back to Laura's point, there's so much stronger, ability for this to be a catalyst with, advocates that are already bought in. So you guys just showing those simple ways, it's like, okay, yes, I would love for this to be institutionalized, pass legislation that shows all these things. But put that aside for right now. Let's just go show the beauty. There's beautiful examples of what belonging does, of how you speak to people, of how parents say, you know what, I've never been empowered to be an advocate for my child, but because of the way you guys have created this index and the communication, God, it just made me want to be a part of this school, this community, this movement, this whatever it is. It's like, I feel like that's way more powerful right now, and thank God there's a lot of that exists, right? There's a lot of advocacy that exists. I think going uphill right now of the trying to speak to the employability and all that stuff, I think that's way harder. That's a lot of there's just a lot of distance and gap, unless that's already a part of it. And again, I know that you guys have multiple. There's multiple presentations within the presentation. Yeah. I'm just saying, as seeing this, if I'm putting myself in the bad guy spot, I'm like, I didn't get it. It didn't connect. But I felt the power of the individual instances where it's like, dude, just this simple clip, just this simple change in tone in what you said, just brought in so much more people. And that, man, that sparks, right? That makes people feel good. That stuff versus me trying to understand the economic impact. That'd be my recommendation.
Thanks.
Brilliant. Question for you. We're talking about abilities and disabilities, and they enable or disable. What does Zoe's disability enable you to be?
Oh man, we'll have to go think about that.
So I don't.
All three of those.
No.
things.
Well, no. If that's the answer, then that's fine. Yeah. But I'm interested, and maybe it's an offline conversation. But just I think that there was something you had to do and execute in your life, and accept, and respond to. There's something that we see you doing that works. It's you. What is your process? What is your protocol? What are the things that you would do from a certain standpoint that we can extrapolate, and then we can see how those fit into our spaces.
Yeah, sure.
Right,
So
and that's why.
I think that's a part of why we created the. That is a part of why we created the Accessibility Communications Index. A part of what makes us who we are is our background and how we were raised and the stresses and things that we had to overcome ourselves that have brought us to a point to where we see Zoe in a specific way that others may not. And it's innate for us to respond to her in a way that others may not. We can't ask that of everyone because everyone hadn't lived the life we've lived. But we can give small steps that are easy to meet, that help to make it easier to reach that outcome of a level playing field of baseline understanding through the means of communication. And so that's what this ACI is supposed to do, is to give people the small steps that they can use to create that baseline of understanding through communication.
Yeah, and the first part is that she taught us how to listen. We learned we were terrible listeners, and most people are. But Zoe taught us how to listen. We listened for the things she does say, the things she doesn't say, the way she says things, what her body language is saying, what her room is saying, we learned to listen on a very deep level. And that skill has been transferable to everything that we do. This is education, advocacy, and research because it's largely listening based. And part of the conversation that most people get wrong, part of communications that many people get wrong, it's a part of listening. They talk more than they listen. Okay, I'm not gonna preach. That was Esther was about to say something.
Right ahead. Thank you.
First of all, I just want to say to both of you how I literally got teary-eyed back here just thinking about how great of an advocate you both have been for Zoe and the disabled community. And I was thinking through the presentation, and something that most people don't know, especially anyone in this room, is that Ron is a twin. And his brother has cerebral palsy, and he was born that way, right? So he's been nonverbal all of his life. And so thinking about the disabled community that can't speak, that can't talk, that can't communicate the way, even Zoe can. Yeah, they don't have a voice, right? And so I really wanted to encourage the advocacy part, because when you said that you went to Oxford and most people are like, oh, you don't see parents advocating. I don't think that it's the lack of desire to advocate for their children or their family. I think it's the lack of how to do that, right? Because thinking about Ron's mom, who stays at home with him all day, every day, they don't have time to come to spaces like this and hear about how to be a better advocate for their children when they're doing it every single day in a space that they're familiar with, right? And so, his name is Donald, but we call him Pee-wee. Pee-wee has been in and out of the hospital so much over the past 3 months, just on multiple levels, right? And so she has to advocate for her son every time she goes to the hospital with a different doctor, a different physician, a different surgeon, it's so difficult to figure out what their process looks like every single time. You have to explain what's going on. And so I really want to encourage you to hone in on the advocacy piece. Like, how can you teach parents and those that are primary, people taking care of their family and their children, how to really have this voice for themselves and for their family in a way that's accessible to them? Is that online? Is that Zoom? Is that video? Is because they won't be able to come to spaces like this and really learn. So I just wanted to share that.
I love that. One of the things we learned is that I could see this. This is what we learned while we were there. We heard of stories of the advocates that were there who were referring to parents, saying how many of the parents that they work with are ashamed of their families. They're ashamed of their children. And one of the reasons that we push for this communications index amongst our friends and colleagues is because one of the ways you start to invite people in is by showing that they exist in your ads, in your community, in all of those efforts. So if I don't see my kid in that thing, then I'm likely going to feel ashamed that because they're not welcome, they're not thought about, they're not considered. What am I going to do when I show up with her, him, etc. So part of it is shame, and so I think part of our advocacy work can be that, inviting parents to not be ashamed of your child, which is a hard thing to do. It requires the community. It requires everybody else saying, no, you all are welcome here. You can come here. So
that's right, and that's also why we included. For those of you that didn't hear earlier in the paper, there's a part about the use of positive psychology, as well as mindfulness practices to help reinforce the language and the efforts. And what I would encourage is you might not get to read the paper, but when practicing these types of things, it impresses that there is a need for introspection in order to truly be able to see another person. You have to be able to honestly take a good look at yourself. And that would help you to see really what language and abilities you really are working with, what you're not, what you're refusing to use. But in addition to that, it helps to create a better environment for those that come into your presence, or those that you may want to invite into somewhere else. So when you're practicing speaking highly of a person, when you're practicing just simple things like smiling, when a person is speaking with you, or trying different ways to hear what they're saying. Y'all know Zoe speaks, she's made up her own language. it's a merger between English and Zoe, and you gotta work sometimes to figure out what it is. We're her parents, and we still do. Going the extra step just to try, that creates a better environment, which helps to encourage. She's absolutely right. The parents and the village that surrounds all of these people. It's not just people that have DS. It's not just people with cerebral palsy. It's not just people with MS. Sometimes it's the person that came off the field from war and is suffering from PTSD and brain problems and hearing problems and issues like that, and now has to deal with feeling less of themselves because of it. Those people are struggling too, and they're coming back into a society that, unfortunately, to a high extent, will expect you to be able to pull yourself up and keep going. So if we're keeping these things in mind, like we added to our research paper, then it'll help to bolster this environment that'll be better and give us greater outcomes for how people see themselves and how they behave and how they live their lives.
You guys are awesome.
Thank you all so much
Thank
again.
you.
That's it. All right, you all can stand up, stretch your legs. I'm gonna turn the music back on. And
We gotta take a picture. We have
yes.
to take one big ginormo photo. You can't get out of it.
Yeah.
Cam, tell us where to go. There are tons of pastries back there. If you don't take one home, I'm gonna stuff it in your pocket.
One last shout out. We got a Hava. Want to shout out our friend Brittany Johnson who came in. What up? We're so glad that you made it here. Be sure to get in this picture and let us hug your neck, okay, before you get out of here.
There's also a little card at your
yes.
in your chair, and I'm gonna let you figure out what it means for yourself.
Please take the card.
Please take the card with you, and there's a note on the back for you as well. So, thank you guys for being here. Let's take a photo.